Walter, can you lead us in the pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Adrian.
Good evening. Adriana Riccio, 72 Chernusky Road. Why do you have such a huge camera right there? It's a town council meeting in New Milford. Anyway. Oh, thank you. Such a doll. Okay.
Good one, Walter.
So I just have a few things. I know everybody's very worked up at budget time, but I think there's some things that need addressing because a lot of questions are always asked about the school budget and why it's so much money. And I personally don't think it's that much money. I think that they've cut as much as they could possibly cut. But there are some things going on the town side that you possibly should look at again, like legal fees. Like, why are we spending so much on standard demolition? Shouldn't that have been settled? It's been on the docket for a few years. I mean, I think you should really take a look at it and say, why are we spending $500,000 in 1 year just on legal fees? It's a little excessive. The solar plant. Why are we fighting the solar people? I drove up on Candlewood Mountain Road one day, and I couldn't believe what's across the street. It's basically clear cut by the property owner, who was the owner of the area where the solar farm was going to be. I've never heard a peep out of anybody about the clear cutting across the street. Nothing. But we're fighting solar. Why don't you guys work with them and try and find them another location instead of spending more money on legal fees? It just doesn't make any sense. The pothole filling machine. I've said it before, I'll say it again. $274,000 on a machine that's sitting behind Public Works. And how often is it going to be used? How much does it cost to maintain it? Why on earth did you buy this? And where is Councilman Szymanski? Because I really want to ask him why he is the one who came to purchasing and asked to buy this. He doesn't work for the town. He doesn't work for Public Works. He's a council member. So why? I've never got an answer on this. So I think you should answer that to the public. It's really, people are starting to ask questions about it. Why are we giving $100,000 to the Economic Development Corporation? Do they need $100,000? I don't think you've ever given them that much. Seems a little excessive. Redesigning the West Meeting House Road Bridge. How much is that costing? It was a bad design, granted, but that's more money. Wasteful spending. And finally, we're paying a grant writer when we already have somebody else doing all the grants. Why are we doing that? So I think this is over $1 million in savings right there. So I think you should really consider that instead of beating up on the schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Captain Mullins, please.
Great.
More Mullins? We don't need more Mullins.
My glasses are covered.
I know who you're thinking about.
Greg.
Yeah, that's okay. Greg Mullen, 39 Meadowood Drive, New Milford. I'll briefly talk about two items. Agenda item 6B, the East Street oil tank. I spoke about this at the last town council meeting. I hope everybody on this council has reviewed the contract. If there's no contract, then it may be time for a policy to be put in place to make a contract a condition of approval, protect the town. I'd like to know, has the contractor, as requested by the last two council meetings, has been asked to come forward before this town council yet? And if you have asked, why have they refused to come before you and the public? My next topic is the Landfill Settlement Fund. I'll read a few highlights from November 7th, 2002, Litchfield County Times article, and then submit the article for the record. The headline reads, New Milford embraces rules on using the settlement fund. Mr. McLaughlin, a fiscally conservative Republican, has pushed for the vote on repealing the ordinance along with other finance board members, arguing that the settlement fund should be used to offset the debt from a $70 million project to produce the new high school and converted the former high school into an intermediate school. Now, instead of $400,000, we have 40% of that to use for next year's budget tax relief, Mr. McLaughlin said as he was leaving Town Hall, referring to the level of funds that can be applied to the budget for the next fiscal year. That's all the assistance we have on debt service for the school. Taxpayers think that's enough, so I guess I have to agree. Mr. Doring said he had originally proposed an advisory committee with members who have no political ties to serve as gatekeepers for the fund. The committee would study all project proposals and bring information about them and recommendations to the town council. Mr. Doring led the commission that fought a decade-long legal battle against Waste Management over the height of its Route 7 landfill, which ended in a settlement in 1998. The settlement was set to come in increments over a 25-year period, starting with a $3 million lump sum and $1 million a year over the first 10 years. So far, the town has received $7 million and accrued $600,000 in interest, of which $400,000, all but $400,000, has been applied to the revenue side of the annual budget tax relief. Since the time of the settlement, Mr. Doring has proposed that the settlement funds be set aside in an account separate from the general fund, and an advisory committee be created to study the ways the money could be used for special projects. After several years of debate, and after a committee listened to public input on the matter and made recommendations to the town council, a compromise between the opposing sides was forged in the form of the ordinance that would slowly wean the budget off the money over the next 5 years. During that time, some of the money could be used for tax relief. After the 5-year period, no waste management fund could be used. The ordinance was passed in January, but it was amended twice during the budget season because voters kept rejecting spending plans. The original budget was proposed $1 million in tax waste management funds, and the final $72.2 million budget, the fourth proposed, included a $2.6 million, of which $600,000 from the payment was to be received last month. So according to the current town ordinance, fiscal year 2023-2024 is the last budget year the town may use the landfill settlement fund for tax relief. In the interest of planning and protecting the fund, I would like to see the mayor and the town council form a landfill settlement committee to advise on potential projects that could have the greatest impact for the future of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Jeff Winter, please.
I can go by Greg Winter if you want. It all works. Jeff Winter, 22 Morey Road. I hear a lot about how the town is supposedly working, trying to do things differently in order to spend the taxpayers' dollars properly. We're trying to redo things. Well, one of the, I think, the important things, and by the way, I should ask, the town council rules have not changed since last year when it was determined that both committees as well as town departments needed to turn in their documents by Wednesday for the prior week meeting. I believe that's correct. You guys don't get stuff from the grant writer until she shows up. Special treatment? I don't know. But if you guys had looked, if you had an opportunity, but you didn't really have an opportunity to look last time at the productivity of the grant writer, there was a claim that 33 total grants had been applied for since the very first grant that she applied for, which was March 20th of 2018. Now, 2 of those, one the Small Cities grant and also the one for bike and trail, recreational trails, were actually written by other people. So you can knock that down to 31. So if you want to take it over a 52-week period, that's 0.59 grants applied for per week. 0.59. Now, if you have filled out non-competitive grants, you know that's probably an hour process, maybe 2-hour process. If you're filling out less than a full grant a week, you got to wonder, is it really a full-time position? It doesn't make any sense. Now then again, maybe that's all that's out there, and that's okay. If that's all that's out there, then again, you don't need a full-time position. So you got to wonder, not only what's going on in that department, but where's the management and oversight? Where's looking out for the taxpayer? Because we're not generating the taxpayer dollars. The hope was to get $2 million a year, and it was $600,000, which equates to a little over $12,000 a week. Is that really what we want? I mean, in some months, 2 grants applied for. 1 month, 2 months, 2 months, 1 month, 2 months, 1 month, and one per month. And that's 8 of the 12 months. No more than 2 grants. What are you doing? How's the taxpayer money being spent? I mean, where's the oversight? Where's the management? I mean, you really got to question it. I mean, I'm certainly questioning it. The other thing, as we talk about transparency, or at least that seems to be a topic, the committee set up to look at nonprofit funding did not file agendas or minutes since June 11th of last year. Yet we know they met since June of last year, and they even took minutes. And Ms. Francis, you were, in fact, the secretary. Yet you have, even though you've received an FOI request, you have not filed those minutes. Where's the transparency? You can file them without them being approved by the committee. It's over a month now, and we have seen nothing. You got to question, especially if I'm the VNA that had their budget requests slashed drastically, they didn't even have an opportunity to come before you. And you were a public committee. You were reappointed in October to serve for 6 additional months. Not in private, not in secret, in public. And if you're making public money decisions, you have to do it in public. So what do you say to the VNA? Everyone claims to love the VNA. What do you say to them? They had no opportunity, not one. So you guys got to step it up, because transparency is very low, and oversight of taxpayer dollars does not appear to be a top priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Michael Barnes, please.
Michael Barnes, 17 Sullivan Farm. I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Mullen said about contracts with vendors, and just making sure that the town is protected for contractual overruns, and that there's some oversight on that. So I would agree with him on that matter.
Thank you, Michael. Chris Cosgrove, please.
Hi, Chris Cosgrove, 143 Sunny Valley Road. I just want to address, I know you all have been, in public comments previously, been asked to consider, when repaving Pickett District Road, to accommodate bike lane. And I would like to give kind of a different angle on that. To me, that would be pulling the cart before the horse. There's a river trail plan. To me, it's a flawed plan. Bringing the river trail across the river through an industrial district doesn't make any sense, especially when the plan to bring it across the river is a $3 million bridge. The entire Brookfield path that's there today costs $2.4 million. So to me, keeping it on the east side of the river is the way to go. And I wouldn't want us to needlessly spend money until that's really been decided and partially funded anyways. A bike path to nowhere, which would be on Pickett District Road. So I think I ask that we wait to do that until the plan is much further along. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That's the end of the list, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Walter. Next, we're going to move on to mayor's comments. So first, I'd like to thank the cast and crew and the students for a wonderful presentation of Footloose. I was able to attend that with my daughters, and they did a wonderful job, outstanding job. Second, this month is Autism Awareness Month, and we were, as we are right now, flying the flag for autism awareness here at Town Hall. I'd like to thank Gina Paradiso. She is with the Unified Buddies, which is a high school group that works with bringing people with regular skills to match up with people with special needs, especially autism, so that they all can play and work and live together. I thought that was an amazing thing that the Unified Buddies has been doing, so I'd like to thank them. Also, this month is Donate for Life Month. We flew the flag in the beginning of the month, and what that is bringing awareness to the need for donations for organs, tissues, and they save lives. And so we fully appreciate that for those that do, and those that have the donor card, and those that don't, it's a pretty easy process to do, and it can save a life. Next is I'd like to thank the Senior Center. Last week they had a big celebration for all of our seniors that are over 90 years old, and I believe it was over 40-some residents that are over 90, and it was a blessing to be there and to listen to some of their stories, and just amazing. So I thank the Senior Center for that. I'd also like to thank PAC leader Lauren Brown from Cub Scouts PAC 467. They had a Heroes Night where the PAC got to pick their heroes, and it was wonderful to hear. Some were sisters, brothers, some were their teachers, some were their parents, some were other Cubs. So I thought it was amazing to hear kind of their thought process and who they think are heroes, and I thought that was amazing. Also like to thank President Janet Block, the Board of Directors, the trustees, and the volunteers for the animal shelter. They started their groundbreaking ceremony last week, and they actually have the plans and specs in the front, the little vestibule there. So if you get a chance to go see that, it's a wonderful endeavor, and there were some wonderful donors that made this all happen, so I'd like to thank them. And it's for those animals that need assistance, need homes, and I can't thank the shelter and all the volunteers for all their help. I'd like to thank the New Milford Police Department for their food drive they did last week at Stop and Shop, and that was for our community food bank that's at the Senior Center, that's at the, at the JPS, our community center. I'd like to thank them for that. Also, congratulations to the 39th session of the graduating class of the Community Culinary School. Thank you to Director Don Hamicott, Chef Blythe Roberts, and their board of directors. Mike Nahom, one of our councilmen, actually is the chairman of that. It's great to see that people can change their life and get into a new career or start a career as right out of school or in place of school. So I thank Dawn and her staff for bringing opportunity in that respect to our town. I'd also like to thank Oddfellows. They did a roast beef luncheon for the seniors, and that was a packed house, and it was a great opportunity for them to get together, and thank you to the Oddfellows. I'd also like to thank the New Milford High School varsity basketball team. First time in 26 years they went to the States. So I thank them for allowing me to be at their end of year celebration. And it was wonderful to hear the coach give an outstanding pep talk and talk about opportunity, not only on the playing field, but also in school and also in life. It was amazing. So I thank them, and congratulations to the basketball team. Also, we flew the Greek flag for Greek Independence Day. So being Greek, thank the town for doing that. So I thought that was wonderful as we celebrate the different cultures in our town, because we are a diverse town. So the more that we can celebrate our heritage and our history, the better. I'd also like to thank all the citizens that came to the State of the Town address and also watched it on our live stream. I'd also like to thank, as I said in the State of the Union speech, our State of the Town. I'd like to thank our employees, our volunteers, and our citizens for making New Milford the special place that it is. Without them, the town doesn't run, and the community is a different place. Kind of like to give the public and the council some kind of updates real quick on a few of our departments. First, our Department of Public Works. So we're beginning our second phase of our road program, our second year. We're starting to work on Squire Hill. They're putting the drainage in, and they're working on, once the drainage is completed, they're going to start their milling of the road, putting in additional base, and moving forward that project. We've also been in touch with our design engineers for the 9 other main roads that we are working on, and we're working on a timeline right now as they came before us at the last meeting with their 50% design. They're working on actually completing that and going to 90% design. So I thank everybody working on getting that program together. Also, we're going to have numerous roads that we're going to do for crack sealing and numerous roads that we're going to be doing for chip sealing. So it's all about maintaining our road infrastructure. As our Municipal Roads Committee told us, that's a big lift with all the roads that we do have. We are the largest landmass town in the state. It's a big endeavor, but we need to do it as it is a very big asset for our town. Next is Park and Rec. For those have seen, they were pretty much started their work on the green here, of getting that ready for our spring and our summer. We have a lot of events on the green, so they're busy working on that. They've also been cutting some trail brush for the parks that we have, and I can't thank the Park and Rec and their staff for what they're doing. They're also working on getting Lendeming ready, and they're also working with the crews of putting in the additional security that the town council voted on and the Board of Finance for Lendeming, as it's a true gem of our town. Next, kind of real quick for the senior center. Basically, they had that event for the 90-plus seniors, which I thought was amazing. Also, kind of real quick things. They provided assistance for 80 individuals this past week with food insecurity, medical, financial, health and safety issues. 114 of those extra was duplicated service as well. Other programs, they've helped 665 participants in various programs and activities. They kicked off their lunch program with their new caterers, which is the Community Culinary School, which we talked about and the council approved last meeting. We talked about it. Also, they kicked off their walkie-talkie walking group for National Walking Day, which they did, and they had their co-sponsor, which is the New Milford VNA. They also started their partnership with the Philoblos group. I'm probably mispronouncing that, and they had over 20 people attend that. That's funded by the Connecticut Community Foundation. Also, just kind of piggybacking on, they prepared 270 meals, the Northwest Culinary School, 160 regular lunches, and 110 extra lunches were provided at the 90th birthday party. The Seniors Center also has given 226 rides this week, and they had additional 89 volunteer hours. So 89 of our volunteers, they provide an additional 89 hours to make our senior center run. So I thank them wholeheartedly. Also, for information and technology, one of the things that we're looking to do is use technology, use new efficiencies to create a streamlined process here in town. One of the things that we started last year was to create View Permit, which would allow you to get your permit online rather than coming into town. It's a much simpler way. It streamlines the process for all of our land use. All of the land use reports would be seen online. So when they're going through, if you're looking to build a business or build a building or a structure, when it moves through the process from building, when it moves into zoning or it moves into health, everyone can see it, and it makes for a more streamlined process. So we're in the midst of completing that process, and I thank them for that. Also, we're looking at new ways to create different security within the town infrastructure and intranet. So we've gone to, one of the things is for certain people that are on our intranet, if you're using that from another computer, you're getting an actual ping on the computer that you have or your PDA to make sure it's you and not someone else. So we're looking at different ways to prevent any kind of phishing, so to speak. We have our technology department sending out updates every week and kind of best practices as well for that. Also, I'd like to thank and welcome who's sitting in the back there, our Economic Development Director, Karen Pollard. She comes, as we talked about at our last meeting, she comes from New Hampshire, and we're excited to have her. She's been here for her first week, and she's getting her feet wet. And thank you, Karen, for coming tonight, and we're happy to have you on board. Also, I'd like to thank the Board of Finance for their public hearing that they had on Saturday, and it was great that they heard from the public. One of the things that I did want to state was there were some public comments that I just want to make sure that the public itself, as we're making these decisions, fully are aware of the partnership that we have with the board and with the town itself, because we are all one and the same. So one of the things that was talked about during some of the public participation, it was the town's commitment when we had our budget reductions from the state of Connecticut. So I just want to remind everybody exactly how that happened. So, starting with the town grants and reimbursements from the state, and this is to the town side. So the town had a reduction in the Pequot gaming revenue. It had a reduction in the PA 15244 additional sales tax. We also had a reduction in lieu of taxes for state-owned property. Also had a reduction in the pilot, which is for the hospitals and colleges. They totaled an amount of $473,658. Then we had a reduction on the Board of Ed grant and reimbursements from the state. The ECS funding, consolidated ECS grant, was $1,900,409. We also had special education funding of approximately $200,000 reduction. So that was a total on the Board of Education side of $2,100,409. The Board of Education, as we worked together for the whole year to figure out a strategy that could be beneficial to all residents, how we work together to make it happen. So we looked at these and we came up with these solutions. $200,000 the Board of Ed shortfall made up by the Board of Education, and that was for the special education. $450,000 the Board of Ed shortfall made up by the Board of Education towards the ECS. So that was a total of $650,000 was the total shortfall. The town itself came up with $1,450,409 for the shortfall that the town made up. The town also made up $473,658, which was the difference of the additional cuts that I talked about in the very beginning that were on the town grant and revenue side. That's a total of $1,924,067. The town then asked the Board of Education to help us towards the very end they had some additional funding left over, $371,000 in their teacher grievance, which we met with the Board of Education, and they, at their meeting and their Board of Ed, to make our numbers coincide with one another, agreed to bring back $371,000 to the town side and to the ledger. So the town's commitment was $1,079,409 was the total town help for our cuts, so to speak, from the state. So as you can see, it's a true collaborative partnership that we have, the Board of Education and the town. So I just want the public to be aware that we continue to work together to make sure that when we face challenges, when they arise, we look at opportunities to work together. And it's everybody pitching in. So I just wanted the public to be aware of that. Also, on the 20th, we're having the coffee with the mayor, and that's from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Please feel free to come in and chat in a very casual conversation. Had a lot of people come, and I thank everyone for coming for that. And if you have time, please do so. Also on the 20th, we're starting our first annual Patriots Day, which is exciting. We're partnering with DAR, that's a Daughters of the American Revolution, and we're having Water Witch Fire bring the big ladder truck and the big flag. We're also going to have the 6th Regiment from Litchfield fire off some muskets, and we're also going to have, with the veterans, we're also going to have a flag ceremony. We're also going to have some refreshments, and Mr. McGuire is also going to be playing some bagpipes. We're also going to have an honorary Patriot of the Year, so those that can make it, we'd love to have you. That's at 12 noon. It starts on the green, and it's to celebrate Patriots Day and our celebration, and obviously us being one of the colonies that started this whole thing off. I think it's a great opportunity for us all to talk about that. And lastly, there's been some conjecture about our economic development. And there's been some people that say, have we had economic development? Have we not had economic development here? So just real quick, for about a couple minutes, with the council's leisure, I talked about this a little bit at the State of the Town. So we have had some success with our economic development, and we've got more to come. But here's a couple. A&B Sports and Cards Collectible, 160 Danbury Road. Brian Shanks opened up his wonderful store, sports memorabilia. Country Deli Store, 1 Riverview Road, up in Gaylordsville. Hakeem, Bob and his son Hakeem, doing a great job. Make great sandwiches up there, and I wish them the best. Continued luck. 91 Park Lane Road, that's the old Valley Dodge. You can see they've been working on their remediation. They're actually going to be breaking ground for the first phase, which is going to be their pharmacy, compounding pharmacy, and then they're going to have a second pad, which has 5,000 square foot for approval. We're having at 66 Danbury Road, we're having a commercial building built there, Gary Michael and his family, and that's going to be new construction across from Sitco on Route 7. We have Lenochi's Gourmet Market. For those who don't know, it's on Mariel Road. That's the old Mariel Market. And Joe does a wonderful job. He still does some catering down in the city for the filming community. And he makes some great pizza and makes some great sandwiches. And if you have a good chance, go and see him. We have the new TJ Maxx store that just opened up. Opening day, there was a lot of people there. As a matter of fact, the TJ Maxx gave a wonderful donation to Loaves and Fishes. So we wish them well. All these also expanded several thousand square feet in their existing store sales, and we happen to be one of their best stores in the area, in Connecticut. Also, ABC Fuel, 561 Danbury Road. They're building new construction for their new headquarters, which will be in New Milford. So we thank the Risky family for being there. We have Bad Dream Brewing, which is on 116 Danbury Road, which is right in the home, excuse me, which is right in the old TJ Maxx commercial sector there. And we are excited about their endeavors. And they have very good beer there and wonderful owners. And a good spot if you want to read a book or if you want to just have like cozy ambiance, it's a good place to go. Then you have Housatonic River Brewing. It's on 30 Kent Road, and they do a wonderful job there as well. Bigger place. They've got a lot of, if you want to play cornhole, you can do so outside. He's got live entertainment, and that's a wonderful event. So we hope Mr. Littlefield and his family much success. We have Barrister's Coffee on 59 Bank Street, and that replaced the old coffee house, the Java House. So Craig and Tracy were excited that they decided to expand their second business. The first is in Danbury for a coffee house. We're excited that they chose New Milford and wish them much success. Cobblestone's American Grill on 40 Danbury Road. Wonderful service. They do real comfort food. I've had their fish sandwich several times. And Eric and Dina do a wonderful job and wish them a lot of success. River and Rail Cafe, 21 Bank Street. That's Ethan and Nikki, two lovely people. that have done a wonderful job. There was some vacant space left by Dagwoods, and they do wonderful breakfast, lunch. They make some amazing cookies too, I can tell you that. Wendy's, 132 Danbury Road. That was another long defunct building. They tastefully renovated it. J&J Auto, 4 Lanesville Road. Maggie and Paul, fully renovated over 6,300 square feet that was formerly abandoned. So we're excited of their investment in our town. Tandor Flames, 471 Danbury Road. Preet and his family invested in just south of the high school. They have a wonderful Indian cuisine. So we're excited to have them. Throwbacks, which is collectibles and more, 116 Danbury Road. That was right next to where the old TJ Maxx is. They have vintage clothing, home decor, and much more. Young's Deli, which is 46 Danbury Road. Officer Young, he's not only a business officer, but he's a member of the Milford Police Department. And his children are in there, basically running the operation for him, and they make a great sandwich. Litchfield County Pickers, 493 Danbury Road. This is the second store for Mert and Dawn, and they're right across the street from Elephant's Trunk. And they do a wonderful job, and it's 16,000 square feet. We have WB Fence Company, 329 Danbury Road. This project was stalled. That's the one that's right next to Children and Families. And it had been kind of vacant for such a long time, and the issue was getting water to the property. So thankfully, the Health Review Panel figured out a solution, and now we have a new business that's moving into town because of the way they were to do it. Also, we have Domino's Pizza here on Main Street, and they have over 30 jobs that they brought into town. So that's just a few of the wonderful businesses that have decided to make New Milford home, and I thank them for that. And in the near future, you're going to hear more and more businesses moving into here. We've got more and more interest, and I'm excited for that. So with that being said, I'd like to move on to the next piece of business.
Okay, I'm hungry after all this place is moving in. Item number 4, our consent agenda. Move to approve the items 4A through C. A are the minutes, but I would like to note the B and C. Parks and Rec received a donation of $1,400 from the Civic Entertainment Group to purchase a memorial tree and a plaque for the town green. That will be put into the gift fund, and they said they're very thankful for their generosity. And item C is the Rotary Club of New Milford made a donation of $1,600 for a new park bench and picnic table at Lynn Deming Park. That will also go into the park gift fund.
Second. Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
page 2 of 9, under Ware Mayor Bass, thank Kathy Castaneda. The next
Minutes, you're talking? Wait, what?
minutes, I'm sorry.
The minutes?
No, got it.
Okay.
Next paragraph down, it says, he thanked the United Way, blah, blah. But then the line before the last line, they can put away $20 away of 6 months. I don't know what that really means.
It should say each month.
Okay. It's just a point of clarity.
Oh,
I
yeah,
agree.
right, typo. Thanks, Walter.
Okay.
Second?
Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item 5, move to accept the following appointments. Lake Willanoa Authority, James Ganetti, term of April 8th, 2019 through January 31, 2022. Commission on the Arts, appointment of Linda McMillan for April 8th, 2019 through January 31st, 2022. And on the Northville One-Room Schoolhouse, John Cuck from April 8th, 2019 through January 31st, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item number 6, move to request that the Board of Finance approve the use of $135,280.39 from the Board of Education's Capital Reserve account to cover additional payments to ETT Environmental in connection with the removal and replacement of the previous underground storage tank. This is at the East Street, the Lillis Building, This cost is in addition to the $97,713 already paid to ETT from the original appropriation for this project and represents the board's final obligation, Board of Ed's final obligation to ETT for this project.
And just,
Is there a second? Do we have a second?
do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. So kind of briefing the town council. We met with the Board of Education. Also on the town side, myself, Councilwoman Francis, Councilman Doug Skelly. We also met with the vendor and went over kind of the process and what we can do moving forward in a more enlightened way. And that, one of the things that came out of all these conversations is building this municipal building committee. We went over some of the billing, and also spoke to the vendor. And if you have anything to say, Dr. Tracy, I mean, this is basically, or Mr. Lawson? Yep.
We did have an independent contractor there too.
Yep.
To go over everything, but you summarized it very well, I thought.
And this overage will come out of the Board of Education's capital reserve account.
I will make one comment.
Yep.
Because it was brought up, is that going forward, the contracts will be used to ensure that provisions are put in not to exceed on items that can have that type of a notation, and no longer will, for something like this, will we use a purchase order, right? So we'll have a lot better accountability that way.
Mike?
Just for the public's information, didn't this start out at 79,000? The project?
We had originally budgeted, I believe, the town council had appropriated Board of Finance 105.
105.
Right.
So now we're looking at another 120. Maybe the idea is just to take a minute and explain what the other 120,000 is.
So the other 120,000 was when they broke ground, and if I'm mistaken, please, somebody else can jump in. When they broke ground, they hit additional ledge. With the additional ledge required more extensive work from what the contractor was telling us. And in that response, cost more money. Also, there was a sewer line that had been there for, I don't even know, I mean, it's made of clay. So that sewer line has to be repaired. And then also, being in total compliance, by breaking down the ledge, we had to go a little bit deeper because of the, how really compacted the former one was in. So those costs overran, and we are where we are right now. Kind of best practices, as we've talked about here with the Board of Education, who's come before us a few times, and then at our last meeting is what Katie was talking about too, is make sure we have a solid contract moving forward. We also have a municipal building committee with volunteers that have a lot of experience in the building, as we've done with some of our other things, library, turf fields, that allow us now to really look at these things as they're moving forward, where we can catch these type of things as they're coming forward.
So maybe this is not the time to say it, but maybe it is. You correct me if I'm wrong. So in the contracts coming up, that there'll be a point where they can't go over.
Correct.
There's going to be a top, and I think, Katie, you had...
There'll be a not to exceed.
Right, not to exceed, so that this doesn't happen again. I mean, I understand that, things happen, but, being a business guy, man, I'd be ballistic on something like this, so.
Walter?
Speaking as an individual, or let me be very frank, we should have dumped this building a long time ago. Yet on the other hand, you got a hole in the ground, and you got to take care of it. And we started at 97,000, then we went to 100,000, which we kicked around and tabled. Now we're at 135,000. obviously, well, not obviously, but the handwriting, I suppose, is on the wall. We need some kind of oversight committee, has been proposed. Frankly, going from 97 to $135,000 taxpayers' money is outrageous. Don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of public education, but I'm not in favor of digging a hole in the ground and then all of a sudden you go, whoops, we got a problem. And then you practically, okay, I'll keep quiet. I'll vote for it, but I don't like it.
I agree with Councilman Barrett. We had a discussion last week with the contractor, and I wasn't comfortable either with the contract and the way the verbiage was of the contract. It needs to be clear that if they do come into some ledge or they hit a pipe or something, that needs to be included. And what Councilman Gold said, as a businessman, we want to make sure we know the price before we go in. And so the ball was dropped here. Unfortunately, we're stuck in the situations where we have to fix it and we have to get it done. There's a hole in the ground, there's a safety issue, and we can't let this happen again. There's no businessman in the world would ever let this kind of money flow through like this. So I agree, we need more oversight, whether it's coming from a committee or from us or whatever, but we cannot let this happen again. These are the people's money, and this was a mistake. Unfortunately, we have to deal with it and move forward.
Dr. Mullen?
Sometimes people walk up to me in the oddest places and tell me things, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, somebody came up to me and said when they were pouring the pad under this new tank, that they poured it too close to the building and it had to be torn up and moved. Is that accurate or is that not accurate?
Dr. Tracy?
No, good. Well, I mean, I hear these things and I like to get rid of them, all right? Then somebody else told me that the clamps they put into the concrete, they put in the wrong spot, so they had to move those and that had to be cut up. Was that accurate? All right, good. It's good to get rid of these rumors. I don't know why people walk up and say this stuff to me, but figured might as well bring it up. I will tell you this, Walter, I couldn't agree with you more. This building is costing us a ton of money. It's not ADA compliant. You could have taken this money, moved the central office somewhere else, and sold it to Dakota Properties for over $1 million, and they would have done a nice job, which is what they did on the other side of CVS. It would have been much better if we cut our losses. So, yeah, I guess I'm gonna vote for it.
Or you leave a hole in the ground.
Hey, make it a little bigger, we'll make it a pool, right?
Pools.
Come on.
The pool.
We did talk about swimming pools.
There you go. Thank you, Mayor, I'm done.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Opposed.
Okay, item 6B, the school security grant. Move to request that the Board of Finance approve and transfer of $210,477.26 in proceeds from the school security competitive grant, which was recently received by the town, to the Board of Education's Capital Reserve Fund. This grant was awarded by the state as reimbursement for school security expenditures that have been made from the Board of Education's operating budget in recent years.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tracy.
Item 7, discussion on a grant policy.
So let me, yep,
You're doing it?
yes. So I am very quickly, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the reason for putting this on discussion possible action, there really is no action, so to speak, on a policy matter. But what I like to do is if you go to page 2 under Grant Administrator. You'll see highlighted for grants in excess of $10,000. The very last sentence, well, I'll read the whole thing. Prepare a Town Council agenda report requesting authorization to seek grant funding. This report should describe the grant's program's conformance with this policy, including the results and the cost-benefit analysis. Submit this report to the mayor to recommend to Town Council. This report should also include details with respect to the source of any matching funds. So this was requested by the council, that prior to, that we know where the funds are coming from, the matching funds. So all we're doing is updating our policy, and all I would ask for is just kind of a verbal acknowledgement of kind of the endorsement of the verbiage. I mean, really, it's not necessary, but if anybody had any questions with that.
Is that the only change?
Yep.
The only update?
Correct. As per what the council requested.
So, you want to make a motion that we,
When was this requested?
2 meetings ago, when we were talking about the sidewalk grants
about the matching funds?
and then the matching funds. So it was requested by council that we look at making sure we know which line or which org we were going to be accessing funds, which would be a town matching grant component.
So that we're not approving a grant that ends up having a couple thousand matching.
So it'd be page 2D.
No, I'm reading it.
So we do need to make.
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions, Dr. Mo?
No.
Okay. Next is,
Item 8.
yep,
I'd like to move to adopt a resolution pertaining to, for year 2020, Department of Transportation Matching Grant Program. It's 13B to 38BB in the amount of $50,048 for transportation of seniors and persons with disability. And what this does is authorize the mayor to negotiate and execute all necessary agreement and contract documents on behalf of the town of Milford with the Department of Transportation of the State of Connecticut for the Elderly and Disabled Demand Responsive Transportation Expanded Program, and to affix the corporate seal.
Second.
any discussion?
This is something that happens every year.
These are for all the new buses? Tammy, is Tammy here? Tammy can
Senior
explain.
buses.
Yep, it's concerning the senior buses and
Good evening, Tammy Reardon, Grants and Compliance Specialist. What you have before you is a request for authorization for the mayor to sign the documentation that will provide the New Milford Senior Center with $50,048 for transportation services. So these dollars help offset what has already been budgeted for transportation for our New Milford seniors. It does help cover the cost of the salaries for the drivers, does help include some of the maintenance for the actual buses themselves, and it's an allocation that is determined based on our population as well as the geographic area that we cover with those buses that run 5 days a week. We are expecting an increase, hopefully, once the 2020 census is completed, because we have seen an increase since the last census in our senior population, which is anybody over the age of 60 eligible to ride these buses.
Did you write this grant?
It's not an actual written competitive grant, but I do have to process all of the paperwork that the state requires for us to receive the funding.
Thank you for doing it.
You're welcome.
Dr. Muller?
Just for clarity, you said salaries, you said maintenance. Any of this money goes for the purchase of a new bus?
No, the bus purchase is a different program. That's the 5310 program.
Okay.
This body authorized, I believe, 2 meetings ago for that. We do have a new bus that will be coming into New Milford. We're expecting it sometime this fall.
How many buses do we have for seniors?
We operate 5 days a week with 2 buses. We do have a third bus that, through our bus procurement program that we get, the third bus is sort of kept on as a spare in the event that one of our buses is down or requires extensive maintenance. It doesn't disrupt the rideability for our senior citizens.
All right, I thought we had 3, right? All right,
Any other discussion?
I'm sorry, Mayor, one more thing. How often do they give us this? Is this an annual grant?
Yes, it is an annual.
Thank you.
We've received this funding since 2007.
Yeah, I thought so. It's familiar.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9, discussion on rates and charges for John Pettibone Building.
So in your packets, you have the current community center rental rules and rates. As you can see, the prior administration had put in kind of the rules and rates for this property. When you go down the line, it's pretty much comparative with some of the properties concerning it. You'll see the max, and you'll see the Board of Ed properties. There is one part that some of the council had asked about, as well as some of the other organizations that have kind of lost some of their funding comparative, and that is, as you see, right now we're charging, all fees are exempt for nonprofits for the use of the Pettibone property, whereas the Max and the school still charge a nominal fee. So the thought process is, with the costs that the taxpayer borne on all of our properties, with the council, as we looked about 6 months ago at these particular rules and rates, is this something that we want to look at as far as rates and charges? Okay.
Go ahead, Pete.
Dr. Mullin?
So I know at the school, you're paying for a facilitator or facilities person to open the door, turn on the lights, turn out the lights, lock the door. And I guess someone, I don't know, I've never used the kitchen area, but someone must clean up if you use the kitchen or cafeteria at the high school, if that, when there's something in that fee. And what about at Pettibone? If someone uses the cafeteria, does someone have to, or any part of the building, does someone let them in?
So they
And then
they
lock
can
up.
get a key at the mayor's office. You can come and
So
get a key.
the
and
organization
open it.
is responsible, and how about cleaning up? I mean, washing the floor or whatever.
Well,
Sweeping
they're-
and garbage removal.
Yeah, they do garbage
basically.
removal, yeah.
There's no use of the kitchen, there's no water.
Right, there's no cooking, so sweeping and garbage removal
Right.
for any non-occupied part of the
Right.
building that's used. I mean, it's not
But-
occupied by one of our
Correct.
agencies.
And then
Okay.
mopping the floors and the more maintenance is actually done by the staff that's from facilities of DPW that's there.
And at the max, whatever the fee is includes everything.
Correct.
Okay.
Dr. Mullin?
Where it says the following groups and organizations shall be exempt from rental fees, nonprofit groups based in New Milford, do they have to show proof, like a
Yes,
501c.
501c?
yes.
Okay. Number 3, governmental, shouldn't that be government entities, but, should we be a little more specific about that? Is it municipal? Is it state, federal, foreign government? Should we kind of clarify
Sure.
the verbiage there a little bit?
Is the
So-
intention it be New Milford?
I would make it my intent that it's New Milford municipal government
So
entity.
based in New Milford as well? Like they had the verbiage for the nonprofit? Is that what you're
It's
saying?
just our municipal government
Right.
Yeah.
use it, not,
So not the Litchfield or New Fairfield?
I mean, it might sound trivial, but
No.
So
I think
government entities based in New Milford, how's that sound?
Well, they're not gonna be exempt. They could still come if they wanted to pay the rental fee, right? But not to have them under the exempt. It would have to be a New Milford government agency.
yeah.
What would the thought process be if the state or the federal government wanted to use it for census?
Charge them. Charge them. They took money out of our budget.
Yeah, 1.2 million is what.
Charge them.
Yeah.
That'd be a nice job.
I think the mayor's office could deal with that, but I don't think we
Okay.
should put it in our paperwork as saying any state or federal agency
Gotcha.
gets free usage.
Okay.
You want to negotiate that? That's fine, let's negotiate it. But I think it should be a little clearer that it's only New Milford municipal government entities.
Okay. Katie?
Michael?
Just backing up a minute, so if I rent, let's say have a nonprofit, and nonprofit groups are charged, am I seeing this right, that at the max we're charged and Pettibone is free?
Correct.
Why wouldn't it be the same? Why wouldn't it, we're trying to make everything consistent.
So it's a school, who operates the Max? Youth agency,
The youth
right?
agency does.
So what but what difference does it make if it's at the max or at Pettibone?
The difference is they make more money than we
Exactly. So I'm in favor of making it consistent across the board for everybody. Just,
So, Michael, just so I understand what you're saying, so you want the max to have no fees, or do you want to have fees at Pettibone? Which direction do you want to go in?
always fees,
What-
always fees.
So fees for nonprofit groups that want to use,
And the only reason I say that is because it costs the taxpayers money for the guy to come and turn on the lights, to get it cleaned. So not to necessarily make $1, but at least cover the costs.
okay.
And I agree with you, because, we've pulled dollars out of the max and out of the school,
Right.
and are giving it away for free. I mean, it makes sense, you would go to the place that's free, but I just think it's,
Well, somebody's gotta pay for the lights.
right.
So,
I think
right,
that's
but
unfair.
that's,
Just pay for the use.
can I ask, what is the small meeting room? What's considered a small meeting room? A class?
Yeah, it's a
room?
classroom,
So one of the empty classrooms?
yeah. Actually, no, or is that the one at Pettibone?
Yeah, it's the one at the
That used to
end.
be the teacher's lounge, the first one. on
Oh,
the
right,
All the
okay.
way at the end.
It's smaller than a classroom
It
by.
sure is, yes,
by a
right.
lot,
It's
so-
right across from the cafeteria there, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Slightly bigger than downstairs.
So the
Than
library,
Loretta Berkeley, right? It's a little bit bigger than about the same.
Smaller than Loretta Berkeley.
what is
in
the
my-
library?
I haven't measured it, but my sense.
Yeah,
What's that?
It was kind of close.
What's the library being used for
The
now?
library, at Pettibone?
Yes.
There is no use for it.
Right, so that's on here. Well, I mean, I didn't think we could rent that out. I
You
thought
can't.
that was one of the exempted by zoning.
This is from prior, so
Oh, so the library should come off this if we're not allowed to use it.
Another question, let me just jump in for a second, Michael, otherwise I'll forget what I'm talking about.
I can help you.
What about Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts? Do they use any rooms at Pettibone right now?
they do.
All right, we can't charge Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They did sell a lot of cookies though.
There's gotta,
I've bought a lot of those.
I know. they did.
This is, I think this is something that's, it can't be decided on today, but is there a committee that the town has? I mean, we're so big on doing all these committees, which I think is a great idea, because then everybody's involved. Is there something that one committee can review all the rentals, or did we do this already? And make it consistent, and that if it's the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts, okay, it's $5 a meeting, something, to be able to have some consistency.
So I have a question. Who decides on who's what category at the max?
Exactly.
That would be the youth agency.
Okay, well, whatever guidelines, criteria they're using, seems to be working okay. Why don't we see what they're doing? Because the Boy Scouts and the Girls, the Cub Scouts, I get that. But if we said that, there's probably somebody in this room could come up with another group that
Exactly, and
is
then
equally as deserving of a $5 fee,
absolutely.
but maybe not.
Mayor,
Can't
can I-
fire.
Can I ask you, how about we talk about this next meeting?
Yep.
Yeah, let's think about it.
Could you send out a list of the groups that are presently using it on a regular basis? What Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts that are there on a regular basis?
Yep.
What other groups are using the classroom now?
Just-
Because my point is, excuse me, Doug.
No, go ahead.
My point is, I think we're more interested in fees for groups that want to come in and hold an event. But we want to be helpful to school-age groups that they're not raising money, they just need a place to meet on a regular basis.
Well, that's a good point. That's what I was gonna say, is that when there have been a lot of fundraisers, and not that these organizations aren't deserving of doing that, but if it's just to have a meeting, because there's no other place for 35 Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts to get together, I see what you're saying. Just gonna say, what about the gym at East Street? They still play basketball in there?
I've seen cheerleading practice down there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen basketball, but they certainly could.
Is there any charge for that?
I'd have to check, I don't know.
I believe
Well, if not, they're all
school.
gonna be going there now.
Pardon me?
If not, they're all gonna be going there now. Okay, so let's check on that,
Yep,
so we're consistent.
okay.
We need consistency.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll make sure we send this out to the council and we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item 10, conservation. We have a discussion and possible action for an update on the Eagle Holding property on Squash Hollow and the Housatonic Avenue property, and I believe I see Michael John Caballero.
Good evening, Katie. Peter?
Hey, Michael,
We can
how are you
pass-
tonight?
We can pass these out?
Is this in regard, are you passing out something in regard to this?
Yes.
Okay.
This would,
Your autobiography.
Right. That's too short.
No,
Adam had
Oh,
asked
thank
we
you.
distribute
I'm
these
sorry, I
out.
don't know what you're holding.
can I get your name?
So I'm Michael John Caballero, Vice Chairman of the Conservation Commission, proudly serving New Milford in my 20th year in that position.
Congratulations.
I'm here because I've been working with the Conservation Commission on the Squash Hollow or Eagle Holdings property issue. And I saw this article that was in the News Times, New Milford not sure if it wants acres of donated land, who doesn't want 35 acres? And then contained within the article, it says that during the council's Monday meeting, they requested more information on the site. So I went to Mayor Bass and offered my services to come here to try to put this thing to bed. I'm reading from my bullet points here. I have 8 bullet points, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. There was a hesitancy by the council, and that's why I'm here. I reported to the mayor something that I think many of you are not aware of. First of all, you may be aware of this or it may not be, but we have, the town of New Milford has a New Milford Conservation Survey showing, I'm sorry, this is a small version, I'll just show it. This is publicly available. It used to be on the website, but it ate up so much technological information because it's highly colored and et cetera, that the newmilford.org, I guess the IT guys dropped it because even when you went to view it, it took like 5 minutes for it to come up. So it's not there any longer, but the Conservation Commission took 10 years to create this map. I'll remind you that we're all volunteers. It was a monumental task. We were the first town in the state of Connecticut to have such a map. We then partnered with HVA just because we did. And they were the ones who now hold the database with all of this information, which is color-coded, by the way, so that when you see the fine print, municipal properties are one color, and Weantanog is another, and in fee is in another, and state is in another color. It's all there. And this particular version was the 2014. But the valuable part of having this database was that now it's stored. And so anytime we add a piece of open space to the town of New Milford, they just have to go, we just supply them with the map and lot number from the tax assessor's office, and they go in and apply the appropriate color. So I'm very proud of our commission and all the work we did on this for 10 years. And again, I'm repeating, we were the first municipality and the largest municipality in the state of Connecticut to have completed such a map. If I'm blowing our own horn, it's a long 10-year breath. Now, I reported to the mayor, and something that I guess you guys are apparently not familiar with. The state of Connecticut has stated that its goal as a state is to preserve 21% of the state of Connecticut under permanent conservation status. 21% of the state of Connecticut. We have supplied you for the 20 years I've been here, as by law, with an annual report. It's not exactly gone with the wind, meaning it's like 2 pages long. In fact, it looks like this. But I suppose with all of the things on your plate, many of you have not read this, so I understand that. So I'm returning to the fact that the state's goal is 21%. New Milford, the largest municipality in the state of Connecticut, at present has 7,000, this is collectively between the Weontonog and everyone else, easements and fee in lieu of, et cetera, has 7,413.751 acres, which is 19.5%. Now, as the largest municipality, we have a responsibility, any municipality, whether you're tiny, Bridgewater, Roxbury, whatever, you're a part of that 21% goal. New Milford should be incredibly proud of itself because we are at 19.5% out of 21%. And that means we're 1.5% away from satisfying the goals of the state of Connecticut. That amounts to about 588 acres to go. And this is not a race. It's 588 acres over however long it takes. But we are that close to the 21% goal, to which we can actually turn to the state of Connecticut, its citizens and the citizens of the town of New Milford and say, pat ourselves on the back and say, what a good job we have done. Another point is that in accepting this property, every parcel of land, regardless of whatever it is, every parcel has a history over time. And property lines have shifted from the 1700s to the modern day. It happens every day. And acreage calls are often followed by a plus-minus sign. That began in the 1700s. And as a historical title searcher, I can tell you it pops up. Even Roger Sherman, who was a great surveyor, would say in the 1750s when he was surveying in New Milford, it's 56 acres plus or minus, whatever. So in regard to this piece of property that is being offered to us as a gift, the acreage calls are as modern as we can get. But if there's a plus or a minus, it doesn't apply any more to that than it does to the piece of property that this building sits on. So if you see that number anywhere, it could be off by a few feet, and if it's 150 acres, it could be off by half an acre. It doesn't really matter. For those who have any concerns about the town accepting a piece of property that may come under the scrutiny of something called adverse possession, I hope you all know what that is. In case you don't, adverse possession is such a thing where if there's two properties that abut, and the neighbor on the one side has been using a corner of that piece of property, even though he didn't own it, and he has established that he had to use, he was putting his goats over there, or he was putting his flowers over there, whatever it was. This is called adverse possession, meaning that over time and over use, the person claims a right to it. Well, very valuable lesson taught to me by no less an attorney than Randy DeBella. Municipalities are not subject to adverse possession. So Connecticut law does not allow adverse possession claims. So that if in the acceptance of this property or any other similar property, should there become a little boundary dispute, no one can claim adverse possession against the town. That's for public information. I'm sure some of you know that, but perhaps not all of you. I have a letter here, and I don't know if that's what Adam passed along to you, but it's from the Forest and Park people who take care of the Blue Trail, which passes through this property. And it says, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says, it's come to our attention the town of New Milford's been offered a gift of 35 acres at 495, et cetera, with the address. This property is not only critical to the continuity of the Houstonic Range Trail, but it also has road frontage on Route 7 that could offer improved parking and public access via the popular Torrey's Cave Trail, which is taken care of by the Weantenog Land Trust. It goes on, but it basically says that they are continuing their commitment through their volunteers to maintain the Blue Trail through there. That they have always done so, that they have volunteers to do so, and that their intent is to continue that maintenance. So we have a letter of commitment from the Connecticut Forest and Park Association, and they are totally behind this. There was a situation dated Saturday, April 6th. Torrey's Cave area was a trail work day. There's an article on this with a picture of all the volunteers who were there working on the Weantenog property. These are published every year and maintained by the Blue Trail people and given forth to, in this case, into our town. The Blue Trail is supported by them. If there is any question about, I know Chris Charles has made presentations to you, as he has to the Conservation Commission ad nauseum, and Chris is a very good man, but he's a friendly guy, but he's a belt and suspenders guy, and I'm wearing a piece of rope around my belt, you know. But he agrees, and Weantenog agrees, and Eagle Holdings agrees that if there is to be any improvement and or shifting of a parking area, no one's talking about creating a huge paved parking lot. This is not that kind of a situation. All three people, because they're all involved, the town, Eagle Holdings, and Weantenog, anything that makes easy access parking. Right now, there's parking that was shifted over onto the Weantenog land. Weantenog has no problem with people parking there. You can get 5 or 6 cars in there. I don't anticipate you'd ever need anything more than that. The issue came up in regard to taxes. Eagle wants relief from taxes from the January 1st billing for $3,421.10. I want to point out to you that one way to look at it would be to taking this piece of land, this 32 acres, for the price of $3,421.10 of tax relief would be a steal at any cost. But I also want to point out to you, more importantly, that Eagle Holdings and its members, who I have never met, by the way, I've only dealt with Chris Charles, they could have put all those open space parcels, including the ones that the town has already accepted, under Public Act 490, and they did not. So the town of Milford has benefited from the full tax, as opposed to the PA 490 tax, which would have been pennies on the dollar. So I would point out that I think they have been good stewards and certainly tax responsible. There's also a pocket in there of the usable land that they have reserved, which is now being leased and used by Scott's Landscaping, and they are paying full bore taxes on that property. So the town of New Milford is not really losing any money in this deal in any way, shape, or form. And lastly, let me point out to you from my 20 years of experience, many, many people over the years have walked away from their tax burden that they have been given by the town of Milford. And once the amount of taxes becomes equal to or greater than the value of the land, the town of New Milford seizes the piece of property. And the town of New Milford ends up owning it anyway. Under far less responsible management and ownership, someone could have done that a long time ago to all of these pieces that surround the Eagle Holdings usable piece that they're retaining. They could have walked away from it, and the town of New Milford would have had to take it by default. But they didn't do that. And again, they didn't pay $490. They paid the full bore. So relieving them from a $3,000 tax burden is minor in my humble opinion. I want to bring something else up, which is some people would think is counterintuitive or not expected to be heard from a conservationist. I have issues with people who consider conservationists to be nothing more than glorified tree huggers. Conservation Commission believes in wise land use management. If the town takes possession of this particular piece and the other pieces that it already has, there is no reason that the town cannot entertain and look into, through a tree warden, Carlos Caridad perhaps, or the present tree warden, or anyone else, at a form of logging on this property. Now, generally when you say logging, people run out of the room screaming because they think it means clear cutting everything. Well, there's different levels of logging. Our forests are in very, very bad condition right now. Within the next 8 years, there will be no ash trees left alive in the state of Connecticut. If you look out into any of our forests right now, we're in really dire condition because of gypsy moth habitation. It has destroyed many, many trees. And also there's I can't think of the name of it at the moment, there's a fungus that's killing all of our cedars. And part of this problem is because our forests are so densely packed that they're very unhealthy. It's like too many people, too many rats in the cage. They're too close together. Wiantanog has, as a land trust, has adopted a policy that I personally don't go along with, which they call forever wild. Good land stewardship requires maintenance. So I'm just throwing this out there that the town of Milford, with the acceptance of this piece and the other pieces, could look into, if it chose to, a form of logging called what's called a conservation cut. Now, I'm the vice chairman, as I'm repeating myself, but the chairman, Mr. Halassi Kuhn, owns 40 acres up in the north end of town. And he has had that 40 acres conservation cut. You can ask Jim Furlow, for example, our wetlands enforcement officer, about conservation cuts, and certainly the tree wardens. Conservation cuts are done selectively, and they're done to make veneers out of particular kinds of wood, and the loggers make their money, and the owners make money as well. So you don't have to have the mindset that once you accept a piece of property, that it's untouchable forever. That's not true. So just keep that in mind, that sometimes accepting these pieces of properties also can be a financial opportunity. And that's, I'm done with that subject. Hold on. There was some concern by some people, apparently, about a situation in which, at some point in time, in the past, near past, this property or these properties, the ones that we have already accepted from Eagle Holdings, and then this is the last connective piece, conversations were had with Wiantanog as to whether they wanted them or not. And the true story behind that is that Wiantanog backed out, and Eagle backed out of a deal, if you will. It's before it was offered to the town. And the reason for that, and this is all the truth on the table, the reason for that is because Wiantanog, in its newest incarnation, wants to exercise control over not only the pieces that it is given, but the pieces that surround it. So I'm not going to make a political statement on whether they should or shouldn't do that, but I'm just telling you. What happened was Wiantanog Land Trust and Eagle had a discussion. And Wiantanog basically said, well, we're interested because it abuts the piece that we have at Torrey's Cave, but we want to say in what you're going to do on the developable portion of the land. And Eagle said, no, no, we're going to give you this piece of land and you can have it, but don't tell us what to do just because you're our neighbor. And so they parted peaceably. There was no animosity, there was no issues. I have it on good authority that Wiantanog also considered this to be a small fish in the sea, this piece of this 35 acres, because they're looking at much larger parcels in the Squash Hollow area that surround it. far more sensitive properties, and that they're exploring taking actions on those larger properties, which would add to the connectivity of the whole general vicinity. The Conservation Commission's interest in this is to preserve and protect parts of New Milford's history and landscape, which, by the way, is part of our charge by the state of Connecticut. People think the Conservation Commission is solely about saving land. It's not. Our 99-page handbook that comes from the state of Connecticut also charges us with helping to save historical sites and to preserving and conserving the history of our town. So in this case, the Blue Trail has been there so long that many sections of it are ancient Indian trails that have just been maintained through literally the centuries. And so the Conservation Commission's interest in this particular piece of property is to add to that 21% goal that we have, and is to preserve the integrity of the Blue Trail, which is going to be, it can be and is going to be done without any effort or cost to the town of New Milford. The town of New Milford, if they want to make some improvements or something like that, can always do what mayors in the past have done, which is to plug in the Eagle Scouts who are looking to get their Eagle badges. And they're anxious to do something to help the town and to get their Eagle Scout status. And lastly, in terms of this kind of acquisition and the abutting acquisitions that we have already accepted from Eagle Holding, there is no reason to turn this property over to in any way, shape, or form, or further burden the Parks and Rec Commission. It's not that kind of a place. There's not active activity, there's no ball fields, there's nothing to mow. So we understand how precious every town's Park and Rec Commission is. And I have a very, very close relationship with Park and Rec. We're working on another project for Halton Meadow right now. And Dan agrees, of course, and Conservation agrees. I'm sure you all would agree. We're not looking to further burden Park and Rec with anything, and this does not put a burden on them at all. There's no reason. So I think I've cleaned everything up here and given you the information that I think you need. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or if there's any further things that you might need. If it's not now, later, just be in touch with the commission and see if in the future you can keep updated by reading our annual reports.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions for Michael?
No, I just I think that the letter that we received from Scott Malati is a good incentive on top of, yeah, so everybody saw that he's developing that adjacent parcel and of course paying taxes on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes good sense to say that if we're going to forgive some tax or feel that we're losing some tax, we're getting some tax from him.
So question, are we voting on this with both properties, or I would like to vote on these separately?
Absolutely separately.
Okay, so I didn't.
Am I done?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
See you.
But don't go away, Michael John. Listen to what's going to happen.
Oh, no, I'm not going anywhere.
So I didn't make a motion on this, right, Stephanie?
No, you're not.
So let's move to accept the Eagle Holding property on Squash Hollow.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Dr. Mullin?
Does this include I don't know if you want to call it a rebate on the taxes? I don't know what term we should use.
I don't know.
I mean, that should.
Well, I didn't include it, I didn't know what term.
That should be
use.
part of this discussion, shouldn't it?
They want to rebid
Well,
3,000 something.
That's
dollars.
part of the, is that part of the deal to get the property? I mean, this doesn't say that. I don't have any more in front of me than
They
that.
had just made a
Request?
request and a side. I mean, I could ask them.
I have no problem with it either, but
So-
I just want to know if this is part of it, so we can clarify that.
It's not, I didn't say that, but we could also say that if it does come up in discussion, once this is passed or not passed, you could discuss it with them. I don't. I can change the motion, if you want, but.
So we'll accept the property as it is and rebate it as of January 1st, whatever that amount is.
It was approximately $3,000.
So we should follow our own rules and make sure we know what that amount is.
Right, well, that's why I said I didn't mention
So
it
maybe we
because I
should-
don't know that.
Maybe we should accept it.
Bless you.
God bless you. Maybe we should accept it tonight and then have another motion next time for the rebate. I don't know how that works, but.
Well, we're not in a hurry, right? So could we table it and then vote on it the next meeting?
We could do that too.
So it's all
Sure.
clear. it's all
I'll
clear.
withdraw my motion.
No, I don't agree with that. I want you to keep your motion.
Right.
This,
Things been
to
going on
me,
for a while.
again, speaking as an individual, this is something we should absolutely embrace. Absolutely. And Eagle Holding, thank you. By the way, thank you for your presentation. It
Absolutely.
was
Terrific.
precise, it was to the point. How could this town not accept this 35 parcel?
So we'll accept
acre
it
of-
as of the motion then, Walter, and then talk about if there's a tax refund
No,
after the fact?
Hold on.
I think
Can
we
I-
should-
Can I jump in here? Michael John, didn't you give us a number just a minute ago of what they were requesting?
3,421.10.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Well, there you go.
Oh, okay.
could I have that number? I didn't hear it.
$3,421.10.
So if you want to amend that.
Okay, could you please amend your motion to include that money?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
I amend my motion to move to accept the Eagle Holding property on Squash Hollow and to refund their tax amount of $3,421.10.
Did they pay it? Has it been paid?
I don't believe it has been.
Hasn't been
Okay, so you
paid.
can't refund it. It would either be refund or,
What's another word for that?
negate or rescind.
Rescind,
And you would attach fiscal year 18, 19 to that.
Right.
motion.
Right.
Right. It's gotta be written.
will rescind fiscal year 2018-19 tax amount of $3,421.10.
Second.
All right, that sounds good to me.
Does that cover
I think
it
I'm
all?
fine with that.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
So now I will move that we accept the property donation on Housatonic Avenue. I don't have the number of it. I'm sorry, it's not
It's
listed here.
lot 35, it's not a.
Lot 35.
Not a, there's no number.
I'm still not comfortable with this.
Is there a second then for your,
I didn't like, I did not
is there a
make
second?
I'll second just to get the conversation on.
Thank you.
So we have a second, just a second,
Tom
Tom.
just
I second it, and I have the floor. I'm still very uncomfortable with this. I said at the last meeting, this is just south of the outfall. I'm nervous about the condition there. I'm still trying to figure out the benefit that this will lead to us. I'm just nervous about the PCBs. I did a lot of work when Vin Nolan back in the day was here, when we were all economic development, Jeff, Pete, the whole group of us. We're talking about the brass mill and the cleanup that happened on that property. But what was not cleaned up was on the other side of the river, which was really the outfall. And over the years, with some of those floods, some of that PCBs have come downriver and is probably in a lot of those properties, not just this particular one, and I'm not singling this out. I'm just a little more concerned here, and I'd like to see a lot more information on this and really figure out what the benefit to us is to accept this. I can understand Eagle Holdings and 35 acres, that's a no-brainer. This, I still have some questions, and I'm not ready to vote on this tonight, me personally. I don't know the feelings of everyone else.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom.
I just,
Tom, you just think we're gonna end up with another cleanup situation?
it makes me nervous there. I mean, we've seen enough of it, and it's expensive. It's
Well,
expensive
suppose
to clean
someone
up.
wanted to buy it, and, their testing showed something that wasn't there before, we'd be responsible.
Yeah, we haven't tested it for that.
We haven't tested it for that.
So,
Are they still current on the tax, paying the taxes, or are they abandoned it? What have they done to the property?
Housatonic, I believe they're
Yeah,
current.
Still current.
he sold it, he cleaned it
We
up,
need more
I mean, he took out all the garbage that
What,
was there.
what info do you,
We need like a clean bill of health, but how do we go about that?
Well, I did ask for that, a couple of meetings ago, and, Kathy Casagnetta gave us a letter that the company that took away the material and tested various spots, that was a sufficient proof that it was okay.
I wasn't convinced.
So,
Let's see if I can get
Shall
some
we-
more information from that
yeah, let's
company
investigate.
and bring it back. That's okay with everybody.
We're gonna do what?
Put this on.
Table it and get more information for council.
Cautious on this side.
We need like a Michael John to talk about it, so that we all understand what the deal is.
You go figure out what the benefit is, Michael John.
So
You
that
tell
is,
us what we're gonna get out of this, I'd
motion
love to
and
know.
second, right?
I just don't see what we're getting.
You want to draw your motion, Katie?
Pardon me?
You withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my motion, and,
I withdraw my second.
all right,
All right,
Let
so
you
I'll-
get away with that one, Katie.
thanks. I only get a few. So, item 11, we're down to the wire here. Based on our prior public hearing this evening, move to add a new Article 11, Municipal Building Committee to Chapter 2.
Second.
Code, yes, it was misspelled.
Any discussion on the creation of the municipal building committee? All's in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Just
I-
for the record, that will have to be ratified by town meeting. We will include it for the annual town meeting agenda.
Yep,
And item 11B,
that was recessed
that's right,
until the next meeting.
correct. Just wanted everybody to know.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.